Welcome to our first procurement talk of 2021. We had such a successful event series last year, we decided to bring the thought leadership and collaboration to the procurement community again in 2021. Our theme for our procurement talk series this year is upping the ante. Things we're going to be talking about this year include how procurement is adding tremendous value and maximizing value and innovation to their company. So my name is Sarah Scudder. I run a company called RSN. We help companies innovate and better manage their print spends. And we have a couple sponsors for our series that I want to bring up to stage and let them do a quick intro, talk about how they're innovating in their space, and thank them for their sponsorship. Because of our three sponsors, we're able to bring this event series to the procurement community at no cost. So I want to start off with bringing Ken to the stage. Ken, if you want to do a quick intro, tell us how you're innovating in the space.
Yeah, hey guys, nice to meet you. Happy New Year, nice to see everybody. Sarah, thank you for allowing us to be part of this again. We are Worldwide Services. And value, I love that word, and that's what Worldwide Services is focusing on this year to help our customers gain value by providing instant savings where we can help in the network by maintaining the existing network that a lot of companies have. And when I say network, I just don't mean IT managed service network. I mean server, storage, anything that touches any kind of data or technology that's moving out there in all the different companies. I mean, we do business with utilities, with schools, with hospitals, service providers, cable companies, you name it, we're out there trying to provide them instant savings and value for 2021. So, and
you are my fellow Californian, and I know we've been in lockdown for a few weeks, so I think we've got a couple more months ahead of us. So
I think so too. At least we have good weather right now.
Yeah. Don't go too crazy.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, Ken, thanks for being with us. Next, we have Eric, who is joining us from, it looks like, very sunny New York today.
Yeah, hey, everybody. Happy New Year, Sarah, and thanks to the panelists and everyone joining today. Rapid Ratings is proud to be a sponsor of the 2021 Procurement Talk, so happy to join the first one. Rapid Ratings is a SaaS-based algorithmic system, and we enable financial health transparency between business partners, suppliers, and really help procurement teams optimize and gain efficiencies by managing enterprise risk and financial risk on those public and private companies. So we're really unique because we source the financial statements for private companies, suppliers from over 150 plus countries on behalf of our clients. And we've been really busy over the last year helping our clients mitigate risk from the COVID-19 downturn and impact by leveraging our deep analysis and doing some stress tests on their suppliers. So enjoy today's discussion.
All right, Eric, thanks for joining us. And I know there's been a lot of surveys and studies that have come out, and it seems like risk always is in the top three. So thank you for the value that you guys are providing to the industry. You offer a really great solution, and we're happy to be a partner with Rapid Ratings.
Thanks, sir.
All right, next we've got Sanjeev joining us from the only real office, I think. Actually, maybe Adam's in a real office today too, but nice to see you, Sanjeev. Tell us a little bit about how your company is innovating.
Absolutely. Happy New Year, everyone. This is a new year. Everyone is quite optimistic and things will be much better, at least this year. We are a technology consulting and staffing firm based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have just completed more than 10 years in business. And especially on the SOW side, we are concentrating this year, especially on the SAP HANA migration. Because as per the SAP, by 2027, all the 500,000 companies which has implemented SAP, they have to migrate. So this year, our innovation is going to be SAP HANA, how we can design the tools and all to optimize the process. So that's where we are just concentrating.
All right, Sanjeev, well, thank you for being a sponsor and for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so now we are going to kick off our panel discussion. And before I do, a couple housekeeping notes. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a chat and Q&A function. We design these conversations to be really natural and casual, so feel free to chat and engage amongst yourselves and also with the speakers. And then we also encourage questions. So we want to hear from you. Our panel has a lot of really unique and interesting and valuable knowledge about procurement and adding value. So do not be shy. Feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, and Nella will be managing those questions as they come in throughout. Brandon in the bow tie, he is on our marketing team and he'll be managing all the technology today. If you have any questions about tech stuff, you can find him in the participants list. You can send him a private note if you need help with anything at all. So with that, we are going to kick off our Upping the Ante procurement talk panel discussion today. I want to introduce our moderator. She's actually joining us from Paris. So quite a beautiful city. I went to Paris, gosh, maybe 3 years ago and had a wonderful experience. So it's her nighttime. And I'm going to share just a couple fun facts about Nella before we turn the panel discussion over to her. So the first fact that I think is really interesting is she met President Ronald Reagan and George Bush at the White House for a Christmas party when she was a kid. The other fun fact about her is she is obsessed with popcorn. Popcorn is her absolute favorite food, and she can never go to the movies without eating popcorn. And she even has a popcorn handbag that she brings to her when she goes to the movies. So with that, Nella, we're going to pass the conversation over to you so you can kick off our panel for today.
Great, thanks a lot, Sarah. Everything she said is true. But I'm also part of the procurement world on another aspect. And I mainly work in the procurement industry, and I'm also a certified process communication model trainer to help individuals align their hard skills and their soft skills to connect and build positive relationships. So thank you all for joining us. Greetings from Paris. Happy New Year to everyone. And we're going to kick off and start with the questions. So 2020 was a crazy year, challenging year for all of us. Businesses and people were challenged emotionally, mentally, physically, and we were intellectually stimulated. And stimulated by unexpected and expected situations, pushing us to step out of our comfort zone. So my first question is to Mariano. Before you answer the question, Mariano, it would be good for you to introduce yourself. And my first question to you is, as you take a look back to assess what has been achieved in 2020, can you tell us a bit more about the lessons learned and your key takeaways from this challenging year?
Hi, thank you, Nela. Hello, everybody. I'm Mariano Legaz. I'm currently the head of strategic sourcing for the Global Consumer Bank at Citi. I think Sarah was kind enough of letting me off the hook with a fun fact, but probably an interesting fact, I don't know if it's too much fun about it, is that I am what you could call a true COVID employee, in the sense that I joined my new company very early in April, which was, if we all remember, at the beginning of all the aftermath of the lockdowns and the quarantines and the work from everywhere. So anyway, that's kind of a unique situation. I've been to the office a total of 1 day in 9 months, and I have met one of my colleague peer bosses in total. So just check those couple boxes. Going to the specific question, Nela, I think if there was any doubt, this year kind of proved to all of us a couple of very important things that I hope we learn and remember going forward. One is that the ability to react, the ability to adjust, to learn is probably as important as any of the other skills that we can have as individuals, as leaders, as organizations as well. So obviously having also it showed the importance of having contingency plans and having risk mitigating measure. There was there was very significant contrast on people and organizations that were very prepared. Not that anybody was really prepared for what happened, but at least they have some ideas of what to do if things were to change so rapidly like it happened here. I also think it's important to keep in mind that planning and all of that goes so far, and that things, again, change quickly, and the ability to react and adapt to those changes is very important. So particularly to procurement, I think, again, not something that I personally discovered here, but I think maybe some others got a bit surprised of how much influence, how much impact the procurement organization, the folks that work in our groups can have in the business, and especially in this time of uncertainty and rapid change. I think I've seen it in many cases, not just in our organization, but across other companies and friends and peers that work in the areas, being able to drive a significant number of results and create value, avoid also the business having to suffer.
Mariano, sorry, Darlene looks like we're having a couple audio issues, so let's give her a second to mute her line. It's very ear piercing for all of us.
Yeah, especially if somebody's on the phone only, that'd be.
Okay, I think we've got her muted now. So
okay, I was coming down to the end anyway, Nela, and what I was trying to say is that the ability to create value from the interaction that procurement have, the line of sight, the vantage point that we have, the ability to work across functions has been heightened in the unfortunate situation that we have to live over the last 10, 11 months. But nevertheless, we should take opportunity. We should take the opportunity to drive that value and to increase the relevance that our functions and our teams can have in the business.
Thank you very much for that, Mariano. Thank you for sharing your experience and your lessons learned. We have Julia with us, who comes from the Smart Sheets company. Before you introduce yourself, Julia, thanks for being here with us. You look lovely tonight, by the way. Can you tell us a bit what changed about the role procurement played for you in 2020?
Sure, thanks, Nella. For those watching, again, my name is Julia Braun. I head up the procurement, accounts payable, and travel functions globally for Smartsheet, and reside in Bellevue, Washington, where our company is headquartered. Unlike Adam and others who had sunny backgrounds, it is gray and rainy, as you would expect in the Seattle area this time of year. So in terms of what changed.
All right, so Darlene, I think we're going to need to have you call out and call back in because we're getting some really bad background. All right, Julia.
Let me try this again. So in terms of what changed in our role in 2020, on Friday, March 13th, kind of a day that will live in infamy, I suppose, for me, we were sent home and thinking, of course, oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I left everything at my desk, except for my laptop and that kind of thing. Who knew, right? But a week, 10 days later, I was frantically trying to cancel events and get out of venue contracts and invoking force majeure in a way I've never done before, and looking to get refunds for the business on those contracts. And we became busy in a whole new way as we were working to make sure that we were preserving cash flow, reaching out to our vendors to prolong our payment terms. And in turn, our FinOps team was working with customers who were asking for the same grace. We also approached our real estate team and said, hey, this may be an opportunity to look at suspension of rents, suspension of common area cleaning services and parking garage contracts and the like, with rents being one of our largest spends outside of payroll, frankly. And the real estate team really pushed back on that. But with CFO support, I was able to get a foot in the door, and we were able to get cash back, large hundreds of thousands of dollars of security deposits back in exchange for letters of credit. We were able to push rents into the next quarter. We were able to reduce rents in some locations. And we were able to put all of those service contracts like watering the plants and bagels on Friday and food to the kitchen, on pause where they remain. Our trash services, the Shreddits of the world, and also printer maintenance and that. We spent a lot of time just looking at what we could cancel or suspend. And that really, I think, got the attention of the C-suite in a way that we hadn't seen before. They appreciated the fact that we were being strategic about and creative about ways to reduce or suspend or cancel spend. And I think it created a new appreciation for the things that procurement can offer to the business.
Thank you so much, Julia, for your input. That was great. It is important to bring value to the table in challenging moments, and procurement is there to prove that and to help people and the other businesses grow as they go. And so I'm going to turn to Adam, who's also part of the experts with us tonight. We've talked about changes, challenges, and lessons learned with Julia and Mariano. My question to you would be, let's talk about wins. What are your wins, your accomplishments for 2020? How are those accomplishments in 2020 going to impact 2021?
Sure. So I appreciate the question, and good morning or good evening, everybody, from what appears to be sunny Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but actually it's just good lighting in the southeastern end of my dining room. So it's a nice background for you all to kind of have you see, thinking it's nice outside, but it's snowy and cold out there. But anyhow, when we think of what successes looked like in 2020, it was all about finding things, just like some of the other panelists have touched on, to kind of pay things forward, literally and figuratively. And so a big part of what we did at Johnson Controls, I'm in indirect procurement for Johnson Controls, was to ensure that we looked at creative solutions to not only manage or control manageable or controllable spend, like we all like to talk about at the water cooler, but really find ways to ensure that moving forward, as we slowly emerge out of COVID, or we have new and exciting opportunities during COVID, which is absolutely the case at Johnson Controls, that we find ways to mitigate the risk around that spend, or to mitigate the need to have to spend on those items, just like one of our other panelists touched on at that moment. So looking at our contracts, seeing what we were heavy on that we could get out of very quickly, looking at what we had that was not appropriately structured for our company. But then, as much as most of us aren't enjoying the ride of it, having to go through additional layers of manual approvals. So I probably don't know anybody on the phone here today who likes having to do anything manually in email or Excel above your regular approvals, but we did that, and I can't disclose the exact number, but let's just say it was in the high several hundred millions of dollars that we were able to carefully look at and say, boy, we didn't even know we were doing this until now. So cost containment coming out of procurement, indirect procurement especially, which is always shades of gray, hence my choice of sweater color today, it makes us, think differently about how we move forward coming out of this. So maybe we don't have as much of a big eyes to go with our small stomach, or vice versa, however you want to say it. But we look at what do we really need and why do we need it?
That's good. That's practical. That's good for the business logic, and it helps people move forward. Thanks for sharing this with us, Adam. Is Darlene online? Are you? Can you hear us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Thanks. Welcome aboard.
Sorry about all that confusion.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. So Darlene is one of our panelists as well. She comes from the food industry and she's VP in strategic sourcing. I'll let you introduce yourself, Darlene. And I'm going to ask you one question. It's going to be how, so I think you have been in procurement for over 25 years now, correct? And that is
That's
amazing.
correct.
That's great. Congratulations for that. How has your 2020 been different than any other year for you in your entire career?
So hi, Darlene Friedman. I am the VP of Strategic Sourcing, Procurement, and Co-Manufacture at Reese Foods. We're a food company, sorry. We make 100% frozen, as you can imagine, burritos and chimichangas, enchiladas.
Yum, yum, delicious. I love burritos.
So we are in retail, food service, C-stores, military, and also schools. My 2020 was a nightmare.
Well, share everything with us. Tell us everything. How come?
Well, as you can imagine, we had obviously our goals and objectives for 2020 was obviously cost savings, supplier risk managers, performance of our suppliers. And quickly in March, that diverted to keeping the lines running and the manufacturing operations of our products to our consumers. And the criticality of all of our materials and packaging were job one. Reintroducing risk into our operations and supply was critical. We had to make sure that we had every line running and every manufacturing site running. At the same time, dealing with all of the COVID in cases that were coming up at our manufacturing sites constantly. So it was an ebb and flow from March, I will say, till June, where we had a number of our employees who were down with COVID. Luckily, nobody died at any of our manufacturing sites. Thank God. And then we get into where we were running at 100% capacities at all of our sites through, I would say, the summer into the fall. And then Thanksgiving and Christmas came around, and we're in lockdown again in California, and then Texas and South Carolina, where we have our other plants. We are seeing a surge in California and a surge in Texas again. So for me, as a procurement professional for over 25 years, this has been one of the most trying and toughest that I've had on record. Luckily, no force majeures, no companies that went bankrupt that were part of our ingredients and packaging supply chain. But we've had a lot of our suppliers go down with COVID as well, where alternate suppliers became critical supplies. We had many situations where our transportation, everything for us is frozen to our customers. However, the transportation industry, the pricing for transportation is almost surpassing what it costs for our materials due to the increase in cost and transportation. So it's been very interesting. My team is a small team, but they're all solid. And
thank God.
We're tired.
I can understand that. Definitely.
We're very tired. Strategies have been reevaluated and working on growth, but innovation has been slowed down. We are working on our core products, so things that are smaller items that didn't have a lot of revenue. We're not making, but we're slowly bringing those back. So additional materials and packaging are coming back into play again. So it's been very challenging in what I'll call start, stop, and then start again.
Definitely. Yeah, this is like really challenging. New situations lead to new performances, new actions, new things to implement. And yeah, your year was really tough. And I'm really happy that you're, stepping up and, finding the direction and the strategy to implement to improve and make those changes. Thank you so much for your share, Darlene. It's very useful to know that not all businesses are positively taking an opportunity with everything that's happening around us, and it can be very hard and difficult for others. So that would lead to my next question, Mariano. I didn't forget about you. I'm back, and because we're talking so much about risk and we're talking about challenges, what is, to your opinion, the risk that procurement should keep a lookout for this year to continue on the path to recovery?
I'm going to try to avoid the kind of the obvious business as usual risk that we all, I'm pretty sure, are well aware in this call in terms of supplier performance, financial situations, supply chain availability, all the things that are more BAU risk and situation that we manage. I think in terms of this unique situation, I believe some of the risks come from our own human response to a long-term change in the work environment. I think I am a little bit worried about how different people are reacting to this. I think we've done phenomenally well. If anybody had told us beginning of last year that we were going to spend most of the year working from our homes and one-off offices, we probably are going to say, no, I'm quit. I don't want to do this. So most of us, I guess, not everybody, but we survive all of that. Now, how do we continue to, in this environment, be engaged at a human level? How do we continue to team up among ourselves? How do we don't run into situations where we isolate from the business? As a new employee, I mentioned earlier, I've experienced firsthand the limitation that this model of work had. And one of the risks is to become a little bit too insular on our thinking and our views. And I found myself connecting very well, but mostly within the, 20, 30 people that I need to connect to do my work most of the time. But then in a normal year, we will have all hands meetings where, you run into people from other line of businesses. You will have gone to an office where you go and have lunch or coffee with people that are completely separated from your daily activity, especially if you're in a big corporation. But it's also if you're in small business, you will be making trips to meet your customers, to meet your suppliers. You will be interfacing with other people that are not normal or not core to what we do. So I think part of the at least from my perspective, one of the big changes have been a positive is how well connected we are with the people that we work, probably even better than before. I work in a team that is very global. We have people in, 20 different countries, and I found myself connecting with them as well as I will have connected with the people sitting next to me in the office, because we all equally distant or equally close, depending how you want to look at it. But that reality does not translate into the larger organization. Also, does not translate into interfacing and living experiences with people that are not related to our work. So we have become probably too focused on our smaller circle family, smaller circle friends, if you're lucky enough to have some around. And then the office have become our circle, or this virtual office. So again, probably not the answer that you were expecting, but for me, some of the risk is how we as organizations, human beings, evolve into this, and how do we make sure that we take the good and also care for the individuals. I think what we need to be is extremely alert and aware that different people are going to react differently. So we need to lend a hand to those people that might need some extra support and help each other to go through this phase and hope that we, sooner than later get back to some more balanced approach.
I really like what you're saying, Mariano. We're talking about people, right? And we say a team makes the dream work. So we need to build relationships, positive relationships. We need to connect more. We need to accept the other. And this is all about, improving your soft skills, the way you lead, the way you inspire, the way you communicate, the way you exchange. So this is really powerful. Thank you so much for that, Mariano. And I agree 100% to what you just said. I'm going to go back now to Julia, my beautiful Julia. And I would like to ask you, what do you see as main challenges for procurement in your industry for this year?
Well, some of them are maybe new, and some of them are same. I think, as we continue to work remotely, it's important that as a function and also as individuals, we continue to be visible throughout the company. We use Workplace, Facebook app for the workplace. And so I post on there quite a bit, continuing to provide training to the organization around various aspects of interacting with our function and distributing information, making sure people are just kind of aware that we're here. To Mariano's point, I've also been personally taking time, and this is an aside from a 2021 challenge, but reaching out and setting up little 30-minute touch-base coffee chats with people outside of my team in other business units, or just people I used to work with in the office or interact with and enjoyed, just to stay in touch, because it is challenging when you're not bumping into folks in the halls and building relationships, moments at a time. So I'm being really intentional about trying to maintain those or create new ones. Our hiring slowed, but it has picked back up and has continued. So there's a lot of new people too. And it's important to get to know those folks as well. But I think, again, back to challenges, for procurement in general, certainly for my team and I, we have this ongoing balancing act between being a control function and acting as a partner to the business. It's a little bit of a dance, right? So that will continue. And again, I think the lack of physical interaction means you have to tread a little bit more carefully to some degree so that your intentions are really understood. And then I think just, we've done a really great job in 2020 in terms of being productive and getting a lot of good things accomplished. But continuing to care for the emotional and mental well-being of our team members and our colleagues at large is, I think, an important thing to continue to focus on in 2021.
That is great.
Yeah, I think sadly, vaccines are being distributed, and that's very hopeful, but at least in Washington State, the rollout for those of us that are below a certain age group and don't have comorbidities, et cetera, is pretty far out. So I worry that, we may be still having these conversations in August over Zoom. So just having the mental fortitude to go the extra mile is going to be certainly an ongoing challenge.
It is certainly for lots of people. Some people are really comfortable in this situation, working from home and focusing on what they have to do. And others need contact. They need to be seen. They need to touch. They need to be around people. People have different perceptions. And it is difficult for managers nowadays to try to adapt their management style to everyone in their teams. And it's not something easy to do. But thank God it's something that is not impossible to do either, right? And I really appreciated the fact that you talked about business partnering as well, because that's a real smooth transition for me. For Adam, who's the next to answer one of my questions. We know that the procurement sourcing function is more and more engaging as a business partner in achieving goals, promoting value in the organization. But how do you feel about technology being leveraged in a procurement environment, and why?
Great question. So I think something that's become really important and kind of exacerbated by COVID-19 has been when we're all outside of the office, there are certain things that never should have lived on people's laptop computers, only, or in their desk drawers, or printed out in the file folder that we all have them sign saying, don't ever leave that file folder out in the open on your desk. Well, especially don't leave that file folder in the office since February when you're not allowed to go back into the building anymore. So now, without having documents centrally stored, things that we would all think would be centrally stored electronically because it is 2020 and 2021, you're at a loss sometimes. You're starting from zero. But where I think it becomes really critically important is when you get into the statement of workspace, especially when you're managing projects across geographies like I am globally. I'm only as good as my last purchase and my last set of information that I can see. And I could spend 3 days, 3 months, 3 hours trying to collect all the information to make a very small purchase that is someone's emergency, or I could have that information centrally leveraged so I spend seconds or minutes quickly accessing all of that information. So I've only been with Johnson Controls for about the last 3 years, and I continue to make the push for what I have seen as best in class, which is we should all be using some kind of platform to centrally store those statements of work, but also one of my specialties is contingent labor. So you can imagine it's like, where's Waldo during COVID-19? And we need to know where all the Waldos are, right?
Yes.
So and if I can't find them quickly and know what kind of exposure I have in terms of literally who's working in a plant, who's working in a branch, who's going into my clients, I'd be the last person on the face of the earth right now who wants to get a call from a contact tracer. I would say wrong number because I have no idea of how to quickly tell them that, that information they would need. So what we try to do is mitigate the use, that issue by using as much technology as we can, at least in that space. But even there, it's, we're all in different maturity models in our companies respectively. So it all comes down to what has been the business case or use case for any technology and who is driving adoption. So, it doesn't start from procurement. Typically, we're usually the ones who find the tool and we use the tools, but we need someone much higher than us and higher than our CPOs, usually at our CEO level or CHRO, CIO, COO, anything usually with an O on the end of it, with a C in the front of it in some capacity. We need those people to help us drive adoption of technology. But I believe it's where the future is. Two is a lot of us are reducing our physical brick and mortar locations and knowing that there's many workers that are professional level, et cetera, that are going to be doing this work remotely into 2022 with the current environment with vaccinations and office, preparedness and all the things that have to get back to some kind of normal or sense of new normal for us all to be comfortable with working in large buildings together again in mass. So technology, critically important, but I believe it became most evident after events like 9/11 became very critical. It's reminding us all how critical it is 20 years later, with COVID-19. So if you don't have it and you're on the phone like me, where there's some of us that have parts of technology being used or not, I recommend that you have those discussions this year. I know I'm going to keep trying to champion those as much as I can, as long as I'm in the seat.
Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing this with us. We're all so much challenged around people, process, technology. It's it's crazy, and different things are happening out there. Darlene, are you with us? No, Darlene once, Darlene twice. I think we lost Darlene, so
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Good, I'm happy. I have a
Sorry.
question. No, it's okay. I have a question for you. So we mentioned earlier how 2020 had been different. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I wanted to know how has 2020 been no different than any other year for you in procurement? Is that a good question for me to ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think our goals and objectives are the same. It's just been very much heightened, right? There's been a lot more emphasis. I'm still looking for opportunities to save money, to process improve. There's no skirting any policies or procedures, right? Those are all still the same. So the goals and objectives of the team are still the same. However, it's just been very heightened with a lot of changes. I think the change management portion of our jobs has been extremely heightened, especially with my team. Risk management has been heightened. It's always been there. Business continuity plans have always been there. Again, it's just been heightened. Performance of our suppliers, while many of our performance of our suppliers has been excellent over the last several years. Last year was difficult for everyone. We've had late trucks. We've had suppliers that had to shut down due to COVID in their plants. Performance has been an issue. Late putting us on allocation. Again, it's been very heightened. It's been like I've been in a state of emergency for the past year, right? Almost a year now. So I would say nothing has changed from what we do and how we do it, except for it's just been put on steroids, is what I would like to say.
Thank you for that, Darlene. That was a really interesting point, and I hope you do get through the process and recover as you go. I know that Mariano has limited time for us, so you're going to be next, Mariano, and I just wanted to tell everyone that Citibank or Citigroup, where Mariano used to work, is one of America's oldest companies. I think it was their journey started in 1811, if I'm correct, Mariano, and now it's become a world-class organization. So world-class organizations today are all modernizing their strategic sourcing process, correct? So for many organizations, identifying the right suppliers, who are able to provide the correct products and services at the right time can be really challenging nowadays. What is happening in your organization, Mariano? What are the biggest changes you are seeing in the landscape?
What's happening right now is that we have re-emphasized the importance of having a very strong framework to manage risk and ensure that our clients, both consumer but also institutional clients that we serve as a financial institution, are well protected. So we actually were kind of reprimanded a little bit a few months ago by the regulators, not for any specific issue or for having a problem in itself, but the fact that we.
Are you sure?
Yes. No. It's all public information. It's all public information. So
okay.
but it was the kind of call to action to say, more than ever in these challenging times, we need to trust organizations like Citi to ensure that we have a strong backbone of our financial institutions and economies in general. I mean, as we can all imagine, if any company with the reach and the scope of one of these major banks were to have any sort of issues, will be potentially devastating for not just the company itself, but the markets, the communities, the economies that are tied to this, which in essence is the global economy. So that's one of the things that we are now investing. We made it public a few months ago. We invested north of or close to $1 billion reinforcing our controls, reinforcing the quality of our processes. As you can imagine, information security, data quality, operational excellence, execution, all those things are, super important for us. So that's kind of not necessarily a change, but it definitely a additional focus even more than before. At the same time, one other thing that we, and I'm very proud of, talk about this, we're taking on a more leading role, we like to think, is around efforts to make changes in our communities, to help foster the inclusion, the diversity, to make concrete actions that can reinforce, especially in some markets like the US, but not just in the US, across the globe, the need for more effort towards providing equal opportunities to everybody. So we are very active in our supply diversity front. We're partnering with our marketing teams, with our CFO, with our newly named CEO, which, by the way, you mentioned about the history of this company. We are the first U.S. bank to have named a woman as the CEO of the company. Jane Fraser will be effective, the new CEO, starting next month. So we're very proud. And she happens to be a woman, but she's not in that position because of that. She's in that position because of her capacity and leadership and everything that she has shown. But we're very proud of that. So we are, again, between those two things, we're quite certain about our goals and our key strategic imperatives, providing certainty that we are going to be stronger than ever, that our controls, that our framework, that our systems, that everything that we provide our customers are well protected. And from that vantage point and that point of relevance, also impact other things like I mentioned: sustainability, supply diversity, racial equity, equality.
That's great information, Mariano. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, I know that you talked about, things are already in place and you're just trying, and your company is just trying to improve, focus on it, and focusing on the people too, because we've been challenged emotionally. That's great. And the work to optimize the work. And I know that Julia works for Smartsheet. And for people who don't know Smartsheet, correct me if I'm wrong, Julia, it's a project management software where you can, a cloud-based work execution platform, to be more precise, for collaborative and speed work. And the businesses need this today, right? And from that, and to have workflow to communicate inside and outside the company, to go from manual to automated. So this is technology, this is people, this is processes mixing up and going boom, being effective. So in your company, Julia, my question would be, what is your strategy on the ongoing maximization of procurement's value for Smartsheet?
Yeah, thanks for the plug for Smartsheet. It is a collaborative workflow management.
You're welcome.
And we've enabled and automated all of our procurement processes on Smartsheet, and we've created a contingent workforce management kind of VMS Lite, and it's a really cool tool that can be anything you want it to be. If you can kind of envision it and it's part of a process workflow, you can build it in Smartsheet. So, one of the things we'll continue to do in forever is look for ways to automate and leverage our platform for process efficiencies. The other thing I wanted to touch on before I answer the question was Adam's point earlier, but also this conversation about really driving automation and efficiencies in our processes and eliminating paper, et cetera. I've tried to really look for COVID silver linings all year, and there are actually quite a lot of them. One of the silver linings for me is that it drove me absolutely nuts that we had some vendors who insisted that we cut them paper checks to pay them. And as a result of being remote, the check printer is in the office, the check stock is locked in a drawer. We can't get in there. We've been able to convert those vendors to online payments. So that was some needed efficiency gain and a COVID silver lining. But in terms of, how we're going to maximize procurement's value to Smartsheet, we are mandated by policy. So people have to go through procurement to acquire goods and services. But we want to really be wanted, right? We want folks to not say, oh, now we have to put in a procurement request to get this thing done. We'd like them to think of us earlier in the process as, as strategic support and as creative
business partners.
Yeah, absolutely. To be creative problem solvers and to bring good ideas to the table that further enable the business in a positive way. So to that end, this year we've partnered more closely with FP&A, and we've been sitting with them and the business on budget planning cycle, so that we can be consultative and proactive, and we continue to look for opportunities to really demonstrate, our strategic thinking around vendor optimization and category management. Streamlining of processes, and even looking for ways to enable the business to self-serve where possible, so that we're not in the way, and that we're facilitating and engaging where it matters most. So that's really our objective, and something we'll be working on as part of our KPIs and OKRs this year.
That's great. Thank you, Julia. Yeah. Thank you for the information. That's it's always great to learn, right? I'm not in your industries, and you're sharing all this information, and it's great because it gives you more, more things to think about, and for people that are in their companies, they also can go through this process of thinking and recapping on what's been going on and what can they do that others do well, etc. So that's the great way to grow. Just before I go back to Adam, I have the results for the questionnaire that was sent out, the assessment. So do you believe your organization values the procurement function more after COVID 2020? So 82% of the people who answered said yes. 5% said no. I don't know if you can view this as I do, but if you see it, and 14% said no change at all. So this is great. I think it's good that procurement has more value in terms of the fact that we want to be visible as business partners. We want positive, collaboration. We don't want the people that are to be frightened. Oh no, not procurement again. Oh no, not those people again. Oh no, not those process again. We're just like, we're here to help you guys. So it's good. This is good that we're getting more value, positive imaging, branding, what we're doing. And I'm really happy for this. And I hope it's like happening across the globe. So that brings me to my dear Adam. Johnson Controls. So Johnson Controls is an engineering company, right?
Correct.
If I'm correct. So what you guys do is that you build and transform the environment where people live, people work, people play, and try to foster safe workplaces as much as you can. So what are your goals for 2021 going forward?
Sure. Well, one of our goals in 2021 from an indirect procurement perspective, Julia hit on it a little bit about when you get into category management and how procurement is structured. Specific to indirect procurement, we're trying to really make sure that we're best aligned in to service our customers effectively and understand our customers. So, part of my responsibility as a global category manager is to not only craft the strategy, but help drive it. Mm-hmm. But what we find is sometimes we have, just fine with who we've got creating strategy, but then we need more drivers. So we're looking at how do we potentially optimize our teams better? So do we leverage our PBU buyers more who are aligned closer to sections of our manufacturing business, for example, which, you don't see many of our products in the store today because we're mostly commercial sales. So we're inside of other people's solutions, or the huge chillers and things that you see on buildings, the cameras and such that you see in hotels, airports, all that stuff. But so we have to think of how do we to expand, going in more into retail. And that's been a focus of our company for several years. So, but with new people that we have running different parts of the company, new to our organization, a great example would be Michael Joseph Ellis, who's got kind of our digital strategy. So indirect procurement is tasked with supporting a lot of new things that we've not tried to do maybe as deeply effectively as before. So we're taking on a lot of new hats whilst we try to fix our own structure and kind of control the crazy, right? So there's two things you can't buy a cure to, and one's crazy and the other one you can't really buy. It has to happen as pretty. So we can't really force that or make that happen either. So we're trying to keep it all nicely packaged with a little bow on it and make it very beautiful. But it's this constant 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So the goal is to try to get all that resolved this year while we have an amazing year, so that as we go into 2022 and beyond, I think our leadership team really wants to have a nice, nicely packaged 1 year, 3 year, 5 year kind of forward-looking plan. So all the things that the panelists have been mentioning about doing good work, having meaningful cost savings where we can, et cetera, gaining visibility to things, but really also just focusing on, we're a very mature organization founded in, I looked it up real quick, we're the late 1880s, the first pneumatic thermostat created. So, think of all the things that we've gone through, just like all the things City's gone through since the birth of our organizations. So we're just trying to roll with all of that and keep fostering meaningful activity in an organization that's very mature from an age perspective, but in some respects, probably a little bit immature and stuck in some, I don't want to call them old ways, but let's just say different ways of thinking that maybe aren't going to advance us very well beyond the current century. So we want to be thinking of those next best things. Kind of like if anybody's ever been to Walt Disney World, that Carousel of Progress, that last scene always gets updated, the scene of the future, of all the new technology, of all the things that are going on socially at that time. We need to kind of get out there and say, this is what our future needs to look like. So we're involved in kind of helping roadmap all that this year. And that's exciting to be a part of.
That's great. Thanks, Adam. I see Darlene says amen to that, and I back her up saying amen to that too. That was great. Keep on rolling, keep on doing what you have to do. That's great. That's great for your teams and the people you work with. They're really lucky to have you. Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just before I switch off to Darlene, you guys on the other line, don't forget to, send me your questions in so I can ask our experts. We have them for a couple of hours here, so let's, make the best out of it. So if you do have any questions that weren't answered, you're thinking about something, shoot out, and then I'll let them know and they'll answer to it. There are no stupid questions. We're only here to share, learn, and grow, guys. So back to you, Darlene. Are you with me here? Or are you eating Doritos?
So. No, I'm not.
Because if you are, you better share.
That's my best part of my job is sensory. I get to do sensories all the time. So it's not good for my waistline, but.
You have to make a choice. So what I have to ask you, Darlene, is how has your organization recognized the value you brought to the company in terms of value itself and performance for 2020?
Yeah, I will tell you that the procurement team was recognized at the end of 2020, December of 2020. Very much all of my whole team, from indirect to direct to packaging to raw materials to co-man. It was amazing to see. We have a 1 o'clock call, which is an ops call, and supply chain is part of it. I'm in the supply chain organization under this SVP of supply chain. And every 1 o'clock in California time, we have a meeting. And after about doing this at 1 o'clock every day, senior leaders on this call, just to hear what's going on during this COVID crisis, And at the end of practically, I don't know, the first 5-6 months, I was getting calls from every C-suite member, from marketing to the CIO, to the CEO, to the CFO, individually to myself, a call stating we had no idea how, one little thing that would happen from a procurement perspective could literally stop a plant. And it might be just the smallest ingredient, xanthan gum or something like that. So I was getting calls. They had no idea how important what we did every day to keep these plants running. Everybody likes to look at, obviously, the operations side of it. That's what I call popular. And procurement was just, we're keeping the lights on. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Without us, you can't run a plant, period. Right? The people could stand there and they can look at those machines, but they can't run a darn thing without the stuff that we bring in every single day. Mm-hmm. So it was great to see the enlightenment of the C-suite on how important what we do every single day. Now, I will also tell you the challenge that they see is, especially in the food business, and I'm just speaking about the food business right now, is the commodities of what we buy have gone completely crazy. It's not the norm as it's been over many, many years. Trying to get proteins, chicken, beef, eggs, mm-hmm. sausage, pork, mm-hmm. Those commodities are up and down. The food box program that the president put in place for needy people, which I completely understand and support. However, my cheese prices, every time they did a food box program, my cheese prices went through the roof. And none of the analysts that I rely on, I'm a commodities person, but I'm not an analyst, right? None of these analysts predicted that these spikes in cheese, it's costing us millions of dollars. And obviously putting a hedge on for these things would have helped if I would have been able to predict. So that's the other side of the fence, is the difficulties around prediction of increases in pricing based on commoditized items in this pandemic environment is not the norm as it's always been over the last, I would say, good 10 years. So again, from an enlightenment standpoint, it's been fantastic for the C-suite to understand. But then the other end of the fence is we still have goals or objectives to try to save money for the company. And we're doing that every single day with our Ps and trying to work on cash flow management. However, commodities are, really difficult right now, and they're kicking us in the tail. It's a very difficult world out there in the food and beverage industry. I don't know if you've spoken to any other colleagues in the food and beverage industry, but it's tough. And the expectations by the Walmarts and the Targets of the world have really not changed, right? They're expecting more, right? And they want more based on, people going and trying to get more food based on the pandemic and staying home and eating at home a lot. Mm-hmm. It's been a very interesting, there's going to be definitely some Harvard white papers written for this one, right? Harvard business cases are going to be coming very, very soon. I'd be glad to support one because it's been fascinating to watch. The other thing for our company, I will say, is we aren't on a trajectory for profit. The board, the C-suite, and we also have a consultant working with us right now, looking at not just supply chain and procurement, but they're also looking at the whole company on how we can improve our processes. Our company is at a cusp of, they've been in business since 1964, family-owned company, and, they're hitting the $1 billion mark and growing out of themselves. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to change the way we do things. And that's a lot of the conversation is we've been having with our consultants is, what else can procurement bring? And, this is where I have to put on my procurement hat, but I also have to put on, the specifications I receive are what I buy. Mm-hmm. So really teaching the organization, if we want to transform this business and they want me to get $30 to $35 million in savings, we have to fundamentally transform how we specify these items, how we manufacture these items. So that's going to be an interesting process in the next year and a half. I believe we're going to be working on a transformation to double our profit. And that's obviously scary, but exciting at the same time. I would call it an exciting scared, right?
That's good.
But again, procurement is a leader in the sense that we lead in the sense to have people understand opportunities, where the opportunities are, but we are not making those decisions. And I think now they are understanding that we need to help them get to where they need to go in these decision making. Sometimes these leaders are afraid to make these decisions. And I think it's now my job to get them to a comfort zone, because I am a very transparent person. And, you know, some of these items that I think are easy, quick wins, you know, can be debated for a very long time. And I think that the organization, again, that transformation, if you want to do that, you have to transform very quickly and make decisions quicker. And we're there to support them in those decision making.
That's great. Thanks so much, Darlene. And all the best for your upcoming challenges. You'll be on top of it all. I think, so I have a question that just popped in. I think it's important to discuss how we can take advantage of the current visibility for supply chain and sourcing as a result of the pandemic and secure a seat at corporate strategy committees to influence and impact future strategies. So it's a opinion and question at the same time. Does one of my panelists want to answer to this question or emphasize an important point that needs to be
So yeah, I'll share something really quick, Nella. So I think
Thanks.
It's really important right now, if you don't have sign off by your stakeholders on even a high level category strategy. So, you know, there's all the wonderful people who, I'm not trying to be critical, went to college at the baccalaureate or master's level for procurement, but a procurement strategy does not need to be 90 freaking pages. Okay. If it does, then somebody has too much free time.
I love that.
It's just too much. And some things don't need to be displayed so prettily. You know, it's time to go back and get the nuts and bolts of what makes that purchase easy, frictionless, controllable, repeatable, sustainable. It's the time to go back to the stakeholders and get the right stakeholders to sign off on those strategies. And the more partners you have that sign off on those strategies in the business, the better you are then when somebody confronts you now that you're visible, and many of us are like human dartboards these days. You know, we can hold that strategy up and say, hey, but you signed off on this. So you say you want to do this, but you really don't. So you do or you don't. So we finally get to control the part of the conversation in a little bit with some weight to us to say, but you signed it and we agreed to it. So shouldn't we be following what we agreed to? Or are we going to go back to doing business the way we did before the pandemic, which is probably a position of more risk for your organization than having more control moving forward, more visibility, more partnership, and at least some sort of high level defined strategy. So I think having a strategy, whatever commodities or purchases you're managing, because I caution to call certain things commodity. It's certainly how I am about labor. You really can't commoditize. As soon as you do, you've missed the mark. But regardless, it happens. But I think strategy is where it's at, and getting people to separate strategy to save money versus strategy from an organizational health perspective related to procurement of all types, MRO, indirect, very, very important. The two aren't always going to run together. The organizational health piece related to indirect procurement and the savings piece. Sometimes they can't intersect in a healthy place, but one is a means to get to the other, but the organizational health and category strategy usually have to come first.
Thank you, Adam. So thank you for your question, Ali. I hope Adam answered to it. And in another word, it's make it clear, make it simple, make it direct, and, you know, communicate and work on it. So that's basically the message that we want to get out of securing a spot in this corporate strategy committees. So I guess we're coming to an end as I see no other questions. Oh, Julia, do you want to say something?
Yeah, if I could just add to Ali's point, I think for me, having people look at me and my function differently, and in some instances more positively, is something. We've got a foot in the door and we want a seat at the table. So I just am continuing to work to be very intentional about building relationships and building trust of those business leaders, that procurement is here to help. We're not here to lay down and do whatever they ask, but we're here to really facilitate the business, but also bring good ideas, other vendors, other strategies to bear in a proactive way. And I think, building on the change in perception that we got in 2020 to create that strong trust-based relationship is how to secure that seat at the table.
Great, thanks, Julia. Communication and exchange is at the heart of everything we do. So that's great. Thank you very much for your share. So no other questions are coming in. So I guess we're coming to an end. Big thanks to you guys for your input, your knowledge sharing. I loved, exchanging with you guys, and I'm going to leave it to Sarah. Back to you.
Yeah, so thank you all very much for attending our first Procurement Talk of 2021. This is a series we host once a month, the second Tuesday of the month. So our next event will be February 9th at 1 Eastern time. We always have a different moderator and a different group of procurement thought leaders joining us. We really want to try to build a community of collaboration and sharing of ideas. So a big thank you to Julia, to Adam, to Darlene and Mariano for taking the time out of their very busy schedules to share their insights. All of them are just amazing leaders and doing some really cool, innovative things in the space. So I appreciate you sharing your wisdom. Nella, thank you to you for moderating. You are so insightful and warm.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So appreciate you very much. This was recorded, so if you have colleagues or people in your networks that weren't able to attend live, but you think would be interested in the content and information, we will be making the video available in the next few days. Brandon will be sending it out to everyone that registered, and we will be having it on our YouTube channel and sharing it on social media. So people can continue to get your knowledge, even if they weren't able to participate today. So with that, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye.